Industry Pods and Evergreen Podcast Network are pleased to present the following podcast.
This content is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Nothing contained on here constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer by Draper Goren Holm or any third-party service provider to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments whatsoever.
Boom! We're live. What's up, guys?
What's up?
All right, everyone who is watching. I'm super excited today. We have Rish on again. You were on Blockchain and Booze in previous. Actually, both of you have been on Blockchain and Booze, and I'll tell you how I know this. Yesterday, I went on a silly Twitter thread thing like I go on every once in a while. I go into my Google Photos, and because we do LA Blockchain Summit, which we used to call CIS, and we've been doing it for years, I have like a dump of photos of like pretty much everyone in our industry, and they're professional pictures, and there's like 18 pictures of each person from each event. And so every once in a while I go into Google Photos and I'll respond to somebody with pictures of them making faces like I would respond just as a weird joke. And I did that with Mark yesterday just for fun. And one of the pictures I saw in my Google Photos of Mark is Mark on one of the first Blockchain and Boozes, like week 1 or 2, when it was quarantine and we all just hopped on like a Zoom call with like 100 people, little tile squares, and your face was in there. So welcome back.
Well, thanks. Those were some good days, I guess. I mean,
we were all,
Booze was good, but that was about it.
Remember thinking that quarantine would last a couple weeks? This is week, by the way, this is week number 68. Week number 68 of Blockchain and Booze.
Amazing.
So, but lots of incredible relationships and good times have been made here. So, actually one of the cool things, and before I go into everything, shout out to Lunar Crush. We're streaming on all of Lunar Crush's stuff, and Lunar Crush is a portfolio company of ours, but also just an amazing, amazing company. And you should go there for every, I'll probably talk about them 18 times throughout the event, so I don't even have to say anything other than check out Lunar Crush. Also, if you're watching live anywhere other than at meet.blockchainandbooze.io, go to meet.blockchainbooze.io, because you can participate live, you can be chatting with the rest of the community, and you can ask us questions in the QA area as we go. And halfway through this thing, we might even bring 1 or 2 of you up on stage to hang out with us for a minute and hang with the crew. So guys, let's just start by introducing everyone to you guys, because obviously not everyone knows who you are, even though I know that you guys are huge rock stars. Rish, why don't you start first? Tell us, give us a little bit of background. Tell us about Superworld.
Sure. So my name is Rish Latlakar. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Superworld. Superworld is a virtual world in augmented reality mapped on top of the real world. And basically, we enable anyone to create, discover, and monetize anything, anywhere in the real world in augmented reality. And we've also divided the surface of the Earth into 64 billion NFTs, each covering about a city block of land. And so if you buy one of those NFTs, you get a share of any of the economics that will happen there. So advertising, e-commerce, digital commerce, data, analytics, and gaming. And then we're building applications on top. So we have a mobile app that's in open beta right now. We just launched a NFT marketplace, which is in closed beta, soon to be launched at live. And we're moving into further tokenization and DeFi and lots of other stuff. So that's kind of the overview on what we're up to.
Nice. And of course, full disclosure, DGH is an investor in Superworld. So I always want everyone to know that. But I was a super fan of Super World before we ever made an investment, and I would say that even participating, I didn't know or think we would get to invest at the time I became a super fan. So those who follow me on Twitter constantly see me post, and for many months now, post pictures of the random hiking trails near where I live. And I always, post some silly joke about visiting my Super World land, because there's no better place for e-commerce to occur than a random hiking trail, right? So I clearly made the right investment decision by buying those NFTs. But Mark, let's get you up here. Here, scoot your camera a little bit. Let's get you up so we can see your beautiful face. There we go. Now, I've known Mark for many years. We were both a part of the crowdfunding industry. Mark is a securities attorney, and he waited until just a few months after we hired him to start doing work for us, because he's one of my favorite securities attorneys in the world, to then leave his firm and go work for DYDX exclusively. So thanks a lot, dude. But more importantly, Mark is somebody I call for random advice and thoughts just all the time, over the years, when I just want to go like, what the hell is up with this thing? Does this make any sense at all? What do you think this company is doing? Not related to our own personal work or anything. It's just like the dude I call to understand any of this stuff. So now we got him here. But Mark, give us the real background.
Cool. I always love the calls, Alon. I'm Mark Boron. I'm the general counsel at DYDX Trading. And DYDX Trading, for those who don't know it, develops essentially a decentralized exchange for advanced financial products. Right now, our main product is a perpetuals product that, unfortunately, for regulatory reasons, is only available outside of the US. But it is a fantastic product that is gaining a lot of traction. As Alon said, before joining DYDX, I was in private practice at law firms. I'm a securities attorney by background. For the last 2 years or so, pretty much all the work that I've done has been in DeFi. It was starting in mid 2019 on, it was like DeFi only, which has been fun because it started with a little DeFi work and a lot of crypto work, and then ended up with just DeFi work, which was a lot of fun because there's a lot of issues there. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, it's been a little while. Thinking about it, I think this last year and a half, 2 years has gone by so fast in many respects, but I can remember having some very specific DeFi discussions with you, asking about, does this make sense? Is this legal, United States based versus world, this and that? And I remember doing laps around my old office, which means it was 2 years ago minimum. And so, time flies. It's absolutely nuts. I would love to actually start by kind of, Mark, you've not only a lot, we've all been here, right? At least a lot of us, especially the Blockchain Boost community. There's some new people, there's some older people, but you were not just watching it like some of us were doing, or even participating like some of us were doing. You were behind the scenes, seeing what's going on. How do you feel things have changed and grown in DeFi in just even these 2 years, right? The buzzword really started probably 2.5 years or so ago, right? How's it changed in your mind?
Yeah, you could go back. People define DeFi so differently. It's hard to know where to go back. I always think of Maker as probably a pretty good starting point because it's so core to the DeFi infrastructure. I think a lot of other people will look at compound liquidity mining as being the real start of DeFi. And I think that's really right where so much has changed, because the volumes that you saw pre-compound liquidity mining compared to the volumes that you saw post is a drastic difference. Yeah. I'd say that's one key change. And, the obvious thing being, it brought a lot of interest into DeFi that, may not have been there in the same way. So I think that it started probably from I think capital coming in, and then developers coming in, and then I think projects that might not have been kind of tied into DeFi, looking how they can tie into DeFi. And then you get like a much bigger focus on governance in the DeFi space than you had before.
Yeah.
And then I'd say like that governance point is probably what is, I think, continuing and developing in the most significant way around now, right? And most people think about it in the context of like DAOs. Yeah. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now, and how it's going to continue to develop, I think, is like hard to determine. I mean, I think DAOs are either going to be like these wildly successful new types of organizations, or I think, and frankly, it's like maybe close to 50-50. There's going to be some massive litigation involving DAOs where a bunch of people who are governance token holders are going to get sued, and everyone's going to get scared. One of those two things.
I feel like there's going to be somewhere in between, because I think that there might be some crazy litigation wildness, but in my mind, I think the community almost looks at that as the SEC rug pulling a project. Not I don't know if at least if communications are done right and marketing is done right in terms of outside feelings and stuff, unless these people did egregious and bad things and hurt people or scam people, which then, throw them all in jail. I don't care. But like in general, I think it'll just make the community mad at the SEC or the government. And it might scare people from starting companies. But I think that most people or starting DAOs, creating organizations, whatever, I think most of these people, at least in some of the larger groups, are already kind of willing to go to other countries, not participate here, and do some things like that. And I think it'll be really interesting. I think the biggest threat to DAOs in general actually are that autonomous and flat organizations so far are mostly run really, really poorly. And I think that companies, or I keep using the word companies or startups, but DAOs, right, these organizations, a lot of them will probably implode being fully decentralized, because there isn't that leader to go like, get that shit done, do that, like, and employ people. And I think that certain groups will do way better. But so far, all the groups that have been successful have like a leader you can point at, which maybe actually is a reason why it'll fall apart when the government comes, because they'll point at that leader and say you're breaking the rules.
No, I actually think on the latter point, I actually think the thing that's missing from so many DAOs is incentivization, right? Like the DAOs are using treasuries for like big things, like let's give big grants, let's whatever it might be. What they're not using them for is little things like we will actually incentivize you to vote, to post on forums, all these things that actually get people involved in like the smaller things, the things that are really key to actually making these DAOs successful, is not something that's being incentivized right now. So like, I think that's something that like needs to be worked on, because otherwise I think you're totally right.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be, and from what I'm seeing behind the scenes and what I know about certain companies and groups, I think the whole sort of business model and ownership model is going to change over time, and we're just seeing the high level stuff. I think it's probably a good segue and jump into Rish, because I think that connecting this sort of metaverse digital only world with the real world is a part of that, right? I think that we communities physically want to gather, even the best metaverse, hangout sessions, the best versions of this, of hanging out and getting with the community. And, the second hour of this, we break off into tables and hang out with the community. It's super fun. It still doesn't totally replace meeting in person. Like, we still are going to have and want to have LA Blockchain Summit at the end of the year in person at the LA Convention Center, right? That it still doesn't replace that. So, Rish, how do you see sort of, because where I wanted to go with this conversation, I threw it into the graphic, was sort of how communities are evolving because of this. Because I think that it's, well, let's start with the metaverse and versus the real world and being in there. But I think that what Mark is saying is planting the seed for like ownership within the community, right? Like imagine if the people who actually are customers of Wells Fargo actually owned a piece of Wells Fargo because we've been going there for 20 years, right? Maybe you would treat it differently. Maybe you feel differently about it. Maybe they wouldn't screw you with 0.00% interest, right? I don't know. But Rish, how do you feel that physical world, the real world connects? And I know you're trying to, within your world, do some interesting things.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the interesting thing about community is it comes to the ability to leverage Web3 and blockchain and DeFi and the other elements of the overall ecosystem here is, just as you said, we're able to not only provide, in our case with Superworld, very immersive types of experiences where community can occur in a persistent basis, in a synchronous basis, in a physical, virtual kind of basis at the same time. So you can have interactions that are virtual and physical. But when you add, the elements of the blockchain and you provide ownership and make, community members key stakeholders, such as we do in Superworld, where you can buy ownership and buy a plot of land and get that key stakeholder relationship there on the platform. I think you really create a community that believes in the ability to create and be empowered to be able to affect change, whether that comes to governance, to be able to earn income through DeFi or other mechanisms, to be able to share content and be able to kind of have some kind of potential stake in that sharing. I think you look at kind of data monetization and monetization sharing with users based on that data. So you really kind of build a very galvanized group of people that are benefiting from their usage, as well as contributing to the growth of a project in ways that, Web 2 were not able to really accomplish. So that's what's really exciting about this. And it's what's really cool about it, I think, is there's this kind of momentum that builds in virtual worlds and metaverses and other projects, where once you get that kind of flywheel moving and you get people coming on board, they naturally tell others and bring them on board for the same exact reasons that I outlined earlier. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, actually in the chat, sorry, I'm multitasking, looking at the chat, and I just edited the scrolly bottom thingy to because Matt, something actually, let me take a break that I should have mentioned off the bat, and I was going to hit it when I start looking at some of the news articles that have been happening this week. But DGH had a big announcement today that we hired a new director of events, Matt Bozio, and Matt actually just came off of 10 years of working for Disney, and it's a big part of our strategy to step it up with our events. He texted me, he's like, hey, can that scroll thing be changed to make sure we mention LA Blockchain Summit? And so there we go. It's down there already, day one, keeping us professional,
Awesome.
Which isn't easy for me. Yeah, everyone, we're making some big moves for November, so check that out. And welcome Matt when you see him on Twitter. He's a big part of the Tezos community. He's just into crypto in general, was randomly tweeting here and there, and started seeing him on different threads. And then I don't know what happened. The story was great. Literally just we're DMing about some Tezos project. And I went like, what do you do? Let's hop on a Zoom real quick. And we hopped on like a 15-minute Zoom, and it just like clicked. Like it was perfect timing with Adam going off to do his own thing and meet this dude. And he was the perfect fit for us. So really excited to say hi to him. if he's awake, he's on the East Coast. I'm sure he's awake, but if he's not hanging with family right now, we'll try to bring him up later when we bring a few people up. But everybody also, something I should mention again, if you're not watching in our system, go to meet.blockchainbooze.io so you can join the conversation, ask questions in the QA. Where I was about to go before I sidetracked myself was, Rish can hit this first, but I'd also like to see how Mark feels about this, because this was Mark's sort of comment before, was talking about incentivizing little things that people can do within a DAO or an organization. Barry in the chat, if you're an LA native, Barry Watkins, if it's the same Barry, asked in the chat, what's up, Barry? Miss you, man. What other types of little things should DAOs be incentivizing? Rish, I know you're working on all sorts of models and things for Superworld, but also Mark, what are the, first Rish and then Mark, what are your favorite things you've seen other people do so far?
So in terms of what we're doing is, again, we enable our super citizens to buy parts of the platform, which are consisted of plots of virtual real estate. And then we also enable super citizens and users to create digital assets in our NFT marketplace, as well as create content and curate content. And we're looking at a variety of staking mechanisms on the DeFi side to enable, owners of virtual land, owners of tokens, curators of content to be able to earn yield from staking their tokens, staking NFTs, and being able to contribute to the ecosystem, as well as to create demand for the token. So those are some of the things in virtual worlds, I think, relating to, content creation, curation, governance, and ability to use those mechanisms together to really empower the ecosystem.
Very cool. I think there's a lot of opportunity around content creation and community participation when it comes to incentivizing in DAOs. But Mark, being being behind the scenes for a lot of these groups, have you seen anything that you think was one of the coolest things a DAO has incentivized using governance, or what do you think is most important?
Yeah, I mean, I think DAOs have been pretty conservative in how they've actually, what they've done. I think if you look at Yearn or SushiSwap, you're probably going to see some of the most aggressive uses. I think some of them have paid some attorneys to do things, things of that nature I think are pretty cool. But in terms of small things that I think should be done that aren't being done, I mean, you could start with, and the key here, by the way, as to why it's not done most of the time is risk of spamming, right? And how do you prevent that when you're paying people to do small, easy things, right? But I think there are ways to figure it out. So things like making proposals for meaningful changes in governance. You want people to spend their time doing this stuff, you should probably pay them to do this stuff. I think voting should actually be something that's compensated in a very, very small way, but token holders should be compensated for voting. I think we've seen more penalty type things. If you don't vote for a while, then you'll actually lose your tokens. I think that's something EOS contemplated back in 2018 or something. But we haven't seen that much around DAOs in that sense. I think there's things our communities are so at least most of them are very US or Western focused. And a lot of that's because everything's in English, right? So there should be, some, payments for those who are translating stuff into different languages. Just a lot of the little things that cause people to actually be active. And when people are active, you have kind of better discussions, things move forward, and you don't just have the same people doing the same things all the time.
Yeah.
So
I think there needs to be, something that needs to happen is, on one hand, there needs to be almost some gatekeeping so that it's not too easy, but there needs to be made easier or maybe made understood more how easy it is to make a proposal in most DAOs, especially small ones as they're getting started. Because one thing we've had them on, and we should have them on again, is the guys from PrimeDAO. PrimeDAO are one of our portfolio companies, but they just did a ton of research into DAO to DAO relations, in working with each other, in how you can get people to work together, and how organizations in sort of the real world have worked in the past, and how DAOs can adopt the best practices but also do things way better. And when they started, actually, what's interesting is they had a bunch of people that would come in and be like, "Hey, I speak English really well, and I speak and write in Russian really well. Can I write all of your docs for the Russian version? Can I write it for the Chinese version, the French version, the Spanish version?" And they did that through the governance, and they put a proposal. The people who were voting got to vote. Will the DAO spend some of their treasury to pay them? And they did that within the DAO. And this was toward the beginning of quarantine, when my son was doing all of his poo-poo.eth NFTs and stuff like that. And I was trying to explain to him what was going on. I told him, people write proposals, and then the rest of the group votes on if they accept the proposal, and then they pay the people those tokens. Either they were, at the time, they were Prime tokens, or just like USDC, just to pay people for their work. And I explained it to him, and he's like, "I'm gonna make a proposal." And he created a Google Doc, and he actually modeled it after his he ran for like class not class president, but like student council. And his speech for student council was like, "If you elect me student council, I will," and it was a bunch of bullet points. And so he literally copied it, and it said like, "If you give me a job at PrimeDAO, I will." And it was like, "I will make you an NFT. I will do an airdrop. I will do this. And I want like 500 Prime tokens," or something, right? And I sat behind him, and I kind of coached him up, but he did it himself from his own wallet, and he did a proposal to a DAO. Pretty mind-blowing. But like, what's interesting is that it wasn't that hard. And when I would tell people on Twitter, when I tell people in the Discord channel or whatever, "Hey, think about what you could bring to the table and make a proposal. Like, there's nothing stopping you." And people would be a little weird about it. But the thing is, like, that's just sort of the next step of the gig economy. If you're a little bit proactive, you start looking at some of these DAOs, it's not that hard to make a proposal. The worst thing that happens is they go, "No, I don't think it's going to work for this reason," or "You're asking for too much," or "You should ask for more." In the Discord channels, people are talking, but like what you're talking about, Mark, even some of the basic stuff, translating it to other languages and stuff like that, that's how you get involved and how you become a part of the community. John in the chat said there needs to be a cost to making proposals. Some of them do, but some of them sort of almost like make you stake. It depends on the group, but like it's I don't love that if there's a cost, because then it keeps the average person in the community from participating, because what's a meaningful amount of money to me might not be a meaningful amount of money to somebody else, or vice versa. And so if I say, "Oh, it's no big deal to pay $100 to make a proposal," for most people it is a really big deal. So it's hard to judge, what that is. And so I like there to be some kind of gatekeeping. There's proposals, and then if I remember how PrimeDAO worked, it was like you made a proposal and it would be like 8 days long. But if one of the top people with reputation within the DAO decided to boost it, they could boost a proposal and make it happen faster, or downgrade it, and there was different ways of doing things like that. And I think that's a cool way of doing it.
I think the best gatekeeping, right, is like you only want those whose interests are aligned, right? So you do it based off of, right now we do it, consistently based off of token holdings, right? And so like that on its own creates one kind of barrier so that not everybody can just spam. But I think once you get beyond that, and I think the number of tokens needs to be big enough, that is your cost of entry, right? To be able to make a proposal. And I think putting anything on top of that, when it's already like as hard as it is to make proposals that are going to get passed and takes time to discuss things, and you'll most likely get ripped by somebody in the community. It's kind of like, I think you need an increased cost to doing it.
Yeah, there's always people in the community that have no tact and will just like rip somebody well-meaning apart, which is not cool. But it's, that's what happens when large organizations kind of get created and everyone feels like they're really intensely owning of it. But there's also really, really cool things that happen, right? Like discussing it in the Discord channel or in the message boards for whatever DAO it is ends up creating a ton of value and some really interesting new and exciting ideas that wouldn't happen in the traditional world. There's a few things about Superworld. John Sarson asked, can you show us a peek into Superworld? John, Superworld is live. You can, I own, like I said, some of my local hiking trails. I think I own my grandma's old house in Israel. I own all sorts of cool spots. Check it out. Is it superworldapp.com? What was it?
That's right. Superworldapp.com, or just Google Superworld will come right up. But yeah, superworldapp.com is the website, and just click on Enter Superworld, and you can start going and checking out the world and buying real estate.
And somebody is asking, are you drinking tea? What was it that you were drinking? Somebody added, they thought it was coffee. Tea. Oh, coffee? Oh, wait. Yeah. I kind of glazed over before we started. You're in, where are you right now? You're in...
I'm in Kyiv, Ukraine right now.
Yeah, you're in Ukraine. What time is it?
It's like 3:35 in the morning. It's 10 hours. 10 hours ahead.
As you were talking a few minutes ago, I was like, wait, it's probably like 3 a.m. there, and you seem totally good.
Thanks.
Did you just stay up for this, or did you wake up in the middle?
Yeah, I just stayed up and kept doing work. So nice. I'm usually up pretty late anyway, so it wasn't too much longer than I normally am up. Yeah.
Thank you for being a good sport and doing this so late. I'm gonna throw. Actually, Rish, I'd like to, for a second divert. You're working on, I saw on Twitter, some cool charitable campaigns and some interesting things. I'd like to. I've got a good legal question actually. People are asking about my drink now because we started bringing up drinks. I'll get to that in a second. But talking about the real world versus the sort of digital world and NFTs, I think there's a lot of potential for cool campaigns for taking NFTs. Like I own the West Hall of the LA Convention Center on Superworld, and I plan to do something cool with it at the LA Blockchain Summit, right? What cool campaigns have been coming or that have been done that sort of bridge that world, and what's the coolest things you think, and what has someone not done yet that you hope they do?
Yeah, so I think with our mobile app, which is in open beta right now, we've seen users and what we call super citizens, or those who own virtual land like yourself. They've come together to do things and get together in the physical world and put art in locations that they own. So we had a number of artists come together in Central Park because one of the owners of a plot of land in Central Park held an art fair. And so he brought together, a group of like 20 artists or something, and they started posting NFTs on his plot of land and started, marketing those NFTs. They then got together, I think another group got together at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, I think like a month ago. Again, just a very grassroots effort, kind of started going into the museum and posting their art in augmented reality on the inside walls of the museum. And then we did a very concerted partnership with the Flint Water Festival last week, which is a program that's designed to help confront the Flint water crisis. And the idea there is, demonstrating how NFTs, as well as NFT art and NFT virtual real estate can all kind of come together to raise money and to bring attention to in this case, the Flint water crisis. But what we want to do is really demonstrate, as you said, the virtual and the physical kind of interplay there of how you can do things in a virtual world like Superworld, utilizing blockchain and NFTs, and how you could bring and affect change in the physical world, in this case with cleaning up water. And, as another example of that, we're planting a tree every time someone buys virtual real estate. So again, demonstrating how, taking action in Superworld can impact the real world. And we have other things going as well. We're doing things with corporations. We have a partner named RIM, which is based in Singapore, that is kind of the Michelin star rating for corporate ESG programs. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we create ways that corporations that are already, very much trying to do things for the environment and the world, how do we align them to do this with blockchain and NFTs?
I love that. I think it's, I just think that there's so many ways in which to bridge the real world. Actually, there was a question just about that. But I think we probably hit it, but let's see. Eric asked, where do you see convergence of real world use cases and metaverse converging in the next 5 years? Like marketing, art galleries, conferences, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are I think going to become very prevalent. I think we're trying to demonstrate those things, but I think you're going to see use cases of, going to live events and coming in with an NFT that gives you access to certain privileges, or vice versa, doing things in the real world, either buying a cup of coffee and getting some kind of virtual credit for it, or some kind of, virtual accessory for, buying a physical product, or, again, buying an NFT and purchasing a real house. So vice versa, online and offline, offline to online is going to become very prevalent. We're trying to show off some of those use cases as we ramp up.
That's cool. You know what? I actually was just thinking about something the other day, and it could totally tie into what you're talking about. I can see through our system, I think I can, at least I got to double check, who's attended the blockchain and booze events, right? And although I don't have their wallet addresses, I have their email addresses. And using some services, I know how to do this on Tezos, for example, create NFTs, and then send it to you to your email address where you can redeem them, or even your email address be the authenticator into your wallet. And then you can send it to any other wallet if you don't want to use that one. But I could do that on a per week basis for, as a proof of attendance or something like that for blockchain booze. Then in LA Blockchain Week in November, we can have a private hangout session. The only way you could get in is if you've shown up to blockchain and booze, or maybe you get an extra drink ticket at our opening party or something like that. That's an NFT, blockchain and booze. Then there'll be a whole different level of collecting, because would you want the version that says it's been redeemed, or do you want the unredeemed one? Which one will be more rare? I don't know.
Yeah.
All sorts of silly things you can do with that. I've got one question here, actually, Rish. When are you gonna do the moon or Mars? Super world Earth, super world Mars, lunar world moon? I don't know. Start doing the moons of other planets?
Yeah, Richard Branson went to space this week. So, I think that we should start thinking about that. Really for us, it's about user activity. So as long as we can get more user activity on Mars or the moon, that's when it becomes more interesting. But because Superworld is, technically an XR world, so it's not just augmented reality content, it's virtual reality content. So again, our users can create content that allows people to go into virtual reality and into, go to the moon or go to Mars in VR from any location as well.
Could I actually... could here's what I'm thinking. Could you force somebody to be physically at a location to then get into the sort of wormhole into the VR experience, right? So like I own the hiking trail that has a cave in it near my house. Could I force you to be inside of that cave to go into my immersive VR experience, which would probably be crazy dangerous and not actually a good idea. People be like, you know, hitting their heads on rocks and falling, and it would just be horrible. But could you do something like that?
Yeah, you can just put like an AR portal there that goes into VR. So again, you can place portals anywhere.
This yeah, I can imagine some really crazy stuff. Oh, I've got I'm gonna bring him up on stage right now. I've got Matt backstage. Matt Bozio, welcome to the DGH team. Cheers. Congrats, you know. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of DGH. Matt, you're joining us from Florida. How's it going?
It's going good. Looking at your bright backgrounds, man, I don't know why. I swear the light's on in my house. I don't know what's going on.
It's
I think it's pretty sick, actually. I like it.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks like legit, like it's like it was planned, and well, it's like lit perfectly, like for it's a mood right there. We can how do we do this? I think there's a way of me like making you the main person. It's kind of cool. Boom. Oh no, it makes you full screen, but there's a way of doing it like something like that. Hold on. Boom. There we go. It looks, when you're in that view, it looks like it was meant to be, right?
It does.
But dude, you know, Matt's joined us, you know, to, like I said, we do our event. We're going to be doing the 8th LA Blockchain Summit in November. At the beginning, it's a little, we say 8th annual, but at the beginning we cheated a little because we did twice a year for a couple of years. But it's still pretty wild that we're on number 8, and you know, it's about time we have a professional help us scale it in a really meaningful way. So we're really excited to have Matt on board. And I know a lot of you in the community have seen him on our Blockchain and Booze events and have seen him on Twitter and stuff, but I wanted to throw him up on stage to say hi to everyone.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for bringing me up. Thanks for bringing me on the team. Look forward to meeting everyone. Rich, I have to ask you, since we're on, what kind of hair product do you use? That hair is amazing.
You're so jealous.
Thank you.
I'm jealous too.
You know,
people can't really tell how thinning it is.
Shower and get out. Yeah, I don't even dry my hair. Yeah,
that is an amazing coif of hair.
It is serious. But Matt, really, thank you for joining us. We're super excited. Let's Matt, stay on stage for the last few minutes. We'll make sure we also, Matt, by the way, I said this earlier, but Matt was, I was talking, did I explain how Matt joined us on this, or was I saying it off stage?
No, you were saying it out.
I said it on here, right?
Yep.
Okay, see, already keeping it pro. But yeah, Matt was a part of the Tezos community, and we got connected. And what's really cool is Matt was sort of diving down the blockchain rabbit hole and already in it before we convinced him to join us. And, you know, in the past, when we'd hire a production company, hire someone who's, you know, an expert in what Matt does and that kind of thing, we'd have to kind of bring them to blockchain and explain this crazy world to them. And Matt was already here. Matt's a part of the Tezos community, a part of the crypto community. So it's a lot of fun.
I did it willingly and with great enthusiasm.
You know, it's super exciting. I see a lot of you in the chat. You know, I wanted to jump. There was a few really good questions, not just about my Dr. Pepper, but some augmented reality and some others related to more to security stuff. And you know, it's funny. Actually, I want to tell everyone this quick story. So here's what happened when crypto got popular at our events. We had an event called Crowd Invest Summit. And Crowd Invest Summit became Crypto Invest Summit. And Joseph and I had already gone full-time into crypto, so we started making the conversation at Crowd Invest Summit more crypto focused or going there. But this was still, when we were deciding that, beginning of 2017, before the craziness really happened. But by the time our event happened, it was full-on crypto hysteria 2017. And what was really crazy is that in every in-person event that we ever had, the two most popular panels of the event were the panels where the investors were on stage, because everyone wanted to meet the investors and see what they had to say. And the next one was the marketing people. And it was partly because everyone wanted to hear how to market their products and stuff like that, but also because those dudes, men and women, were the people who were the best at marketing their panels. And so the rooms are full. But 2017 was the first time the room was jam-packed for securities attorneys. And I have a picture of our expo floor where one of the TV stations who was doing live television on the expo floor was interviewing Jor Law, our other friend who's a securities attorney. And there was another securities attorney waiting behind the camera for his turn to be interviewed on TV. And it was probably the only time ever, the first time ever, attorneys were being the most popular person in the room. And I don't mean to talk trash, Mark, because I think you're insanely interesting and I love you. But I think the crypto world has all of a sudden created this demand for at least the people who know what the hell they're talking about, right? And so we've got a couple legal questions.
Page. I mean, lawyers being in high demand is like not to be celebrated. Actually, it's like unfortunate that lawyers are in high demand, because that means there's like something wrong. Because really, lawyers should be able to like just help a little bit here and there, and that's it. But that's not what the world is right now.
So how do you feel then about like automating processes and making it so? I don't think it would get rid of lawyers, but it would get rid of some of the transactional things that lawyers have to help with on a regular basis, like things we talk about in the securities the digital securities, security token kind of world. Are you a fan of that? Do you think it will backfire? How do you feel?
I'm like a massive fan of it. I mean, I just like being realistic about it, right? There's the stuff which is like probably like, let's go like 80% of a contract. It depends on the contract, but where it's literally, if then this, that, right? And like that stuff should be automated, and it's that simple. It's the 20% that can never be automated because it's based on like, stuff that's just not known to anyone. And maybe some of that with time could be, if you like have an oracle that looks at whether some company is properly incorporated somewhere because the Secretary of State says it is, like, sure, you could bring that in on chain one day, but like, there's a bunch of that stuff that's not going to happen. But like in terms of like automating things, like I think it's awesome. I mean, I mean, everything that like can just get rid of like uncertainty, time, like cost constraints is better. I mean, if a lawyer can't like provide value on like the tough issues, the important stuff that requires like subjectivity and like decision-making skills, then they're frankly not all that useful. All the rest should be automated, frankly, and it should happen sooner rather than later.
I mean, I think you're right, and I think that like it's what's tough and what's going to take time, of course, is all of these sort of digital. I say digital jurisdictions, but we all live somewhere in the real world, right? And so the cross-border, all these things, which how many people do we meet that are American but have their company incorporated in another country? Where are they physically when they launch their token matters, to law, right? And all these things are just so weird and archaic, but like exist. And
I mean, there's so many laws that are tied to, right? If you think of like when laws were written, like this is something people don't talk about a lot, right? Is like this idea that like when they were written, when you wanted to like enter into a transaction, who are you most likely to enter into a transaction with? It's the person like in the same city as you. And then it became like the person in the same state as you. And then the person in the same like, country as you. And frankly, it's still the person in the same country as you that you're most likely to interact with and do business with for most businesses, just on average. And so most of the laws are written in a way that is very geographical in terms of like orientation, because, well, that's just that's the impact most of the time. But, in crypto, when you can just go on chain and transact with anybody, those laws just, it's kind of like, okay, so you care if somebody's in the US, but like literally who cares if they're in the US? Because like there's no meaningful ties to the US for purposes of like any risk perspective, but that's still what the law says. So like that kind of stuff is just,
do you see that changing? Like, talk about Superworld as a step towards this, but can you see me becoming a virtual citizen of a digital jurisdiction that doesn't exist in the physical world, and I get my health insurance through it, and I get my car insurance through it, and I get my universal basic income through it, right, or something, right? Like I get the things that a government might give you or is supposed to give you, depending on which way you look at it and feel. Do you see a world where that could potentially happen, and then it doesn't really matter, right? Or like,
I'll be like
automating to the whole different level.
I'll be very dead when that happens. Like it's going to be in a really long time, so I can't be right or wrong about it. But I'll confidently say it's like not happening for the next like 200 years unless we get rid of all democracy and people just do things, which is not going to happen.
Isn't that the ultimate democracy? Right? I mean, a group of people getting together and deciding, what is allowed and what is not allowed in their world, and
how the government will step in and say, but you are physically here, and so I'm going to stop it. Unfortunately.
How high into the air do those rights that the government have? Like when you go out to sea, like if you go out far enough, like what if, I get one of those jetpacks that Boost invested in, and I just go high enough to launch my token, above land?
Well, if you talk about property rights, it goes all the way up to the sky. So it really just depends.
All right. Well, there we go. I think you opened up a little bit of a can of worms when you mentioned earlier that governance holders could be litigated. So somebody asked a question on that, and we should be talking, I feel like we could do more Superworld discussion too, but really quickly on this topic, because I think a lot of people in the chat also asked similar questions. Somebody asked who else other than governance token holders may face litigation when it comes to a DAO.
I think the company that launched it is like everybody knows there's technically a risk there. But I think it's governance token holders that are really the ones that are at risk. I think small multi-sig holders are maybe at risk when they're doing that outside of an entity. But like to clarify that comment earlier, I didn't actually mean like regulatory risk. Like I'm not sure there's regulatory risk. I'm worried about private litigation. One of the things that we haven't figured out with DAOs yet is, will a court say that the DAO is a general partnership? There's this like basic concept in law that like when people come together to do business for profit, they by default form a partnership, like by default. And a partnership under like common law is a entity that, fictionally exists where one partner can make all other partners liable for their actions. So one DAO, one token holder acts in a certain way, and there's a general partnership, then all token holders are liable for that one partner's actions. Literally, it's just a matter of time till some enterprising lawyer brings that claim. And the smaller DAOs that have like a few token holders are going to be at like sub 100, are going to be at like way bigger risk than those that have like hundreds of thousands. But it's an issue that's like not been resolved at all. And whether they'd even say it's a partnership or not, hard to decide. But if they do, and there's a lawsuit, well, everybody's liable for everybody else's actions. And that's going to get people to think twice about participation in governance. And the truth is, everybody should be participating in governance by forming an LLC and holding their wallets in that LLC. And then you can sue me all day long, and all you're suing is an LLC of mine, and that's fine.
That's an interesting, I mean, that's in itself a huge topic, like almost like how to protect yourself, in the future if shit goes down in this decentralized world. I almost feel like we might have to have a session just so I can fully understand and why that even is makes sense. It's absolutely crazy. Now we've only got a couple minutes left. Actually, we're probably running into time, but I want to hit Superworld one more time. In that, I think it's super fun, right? And on one hand, we're sort of gamifying just owning a piece of land, and it's scarce, somewhat scarce. There's 64 billion of them, but only one tied to each physical piece of land, right? Only one for the house I grew up in, only one for, the Matterhorn at Disneyland or something, and just throwing something random out, right? So, how much is still left available, and how much sort of action is there now in the secondary markets? And I guess one last sort of plug for what's next, and what should we be preparing for, since we have Matt on here, for LA Blockchain Summit? Like, what should we be doing on Superworld, NFT galleries, parties? I don't know. We gotta start planning it, and we should plan it with the community listening, because they'll probably give us some rad ideas too.
Yeah, so in terms of the world itself, as you explained, each block covers about a city block of land. We've seen a lot of activity in places that everyone kind of knows and recognizes: downtowns, historical places, famous kind of sports stadiums and things like that. But as those places are being picked up, our average paying user buys about 10 to 15 plots, and usually they all have a certain theme. And so, as those themes kind of get picked up, we're seeing secondary trading happening. And we've also added kind of features more recently over the last couple of months that enable you to start bidding on properties that might not be up for sale. So you can, provide a bid on a property where the owner can then consider whether they would want to sell it to you. We're going to be adding communication features to kind of facilitate that as well. And then very soon, as our NFT marketplace launches and monetization will start occurring on those properties, we're also going to see a boost in buyers being able to kind of better understand where they want to own. We're also working on things on the data side to be able to provide kind of heat maps and other kind of specific kind of data points to show owners of land, where they might want to buy their next properties based on activity and other things. And then in terms of kind of use cases, again, I think that the NFTs in specific locations is a pretty good use case for LA Blockchain Week. So we could, do some kind of galleries in locations and, allow people to go and click on their favorite NFTs and purchase them, or to sell NFTs in locations.
How drilled down to indoors can we get too? Because maybe we do sort of almost like refreshing based on the agenda. Like, I was in the room while Mark was on stage talking about this, right? Because, dude, okay, here's where we have to connect. It might be too out there, but when we have the last event we had in person, the professional photographer was used an app where anyone watching, and we send it to all of our media partners too, where her professional photos were going into this thing we had a private link for, and then we shared it with the community anyway. But it could have been, it could have also been private. But like, the professional photograph from the professional photographers were available to the media within minutes, because they would just look at them, and like 1 out of 3 of their pictures, they would just say, that's a good one, that's a good one, that's a good one. And it would automatically put their watermark or our watermark on it. And it was available to everyone. So people that were watching online or that were writing articles about it would get a professional photo of Mark up on stage and be like, oh, I'm putting that in the article about the thing I'm writing while I'm in the room typing, right? Like, there might be some way to like live during a session, grab the best one of those pictures, NFT it, and if you're in the room, you can redeem it if you have the Superworld app on, right? Like, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. Yeah, we'd have to get a way to get it uploaded, which I don't know if that would be too difficult. It'd just be augmented reality. But yeah, I think the minting aspect of that would probably have to be sorted. But yeah, I think it's definitely very possible, at least manually. I think we could to get like a manual like minting and uploading process.
Noted.
Here's a really, really important legal question. When will there be digital liability insurance for when Alex's crypto kitty accidentally bites me when I'm visiting his land on Superworld?
Another DeFi use case.
Very edge case. Guys, I want to thank you again for coming. I want to tell everyone who's watching, especially if you're not on our system right now, to go to meet.blockchainbooze.io. If you join us there, even after we're done with this, you can turn on your camera, turn on your microphone, and we can hang out at a table and get to know each other and have a conversation. So if you're watching anywhere, please come join us. Thank you, Rish, for joining us at 3 in the morning. Thank you, Mark, for joining us. And, Matt, thanks again for joining the team and being here. We're really excited to have you. And I'll see everyone at a table in a minute. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
This has been a production of Industry Pods in association with Evergreen Podcasts Network. Hear this and other Industry Pods at evergreenpodcasts.com, your favorite podcast app, or listen at industrypods.com for your #1 virtual conference podcast experience.